Overtired. So tired. Overtired.
Welcome back to Overtired. Couple weeks off. It's going to be a little sporadic through the summer, but I'm Brett Terpstra. I am here with Christina Warren. Jeff is out this week. Right before we recorded, he tweaked his back, and now he is laying down and does not want to podcast laying down. I guess I get that. Christina, how are you?
I'm good. I feel for Jeff because I know back pain is one of the worst things ever. So, and you know that very well too. So, I'm fine, but I am worried about our comrade.
Have you ever had sciatica?
Yes, I have. But usually what I get, because I have scoliosis, so
Yeah.
my back pain is usually different, but I have had sciatica before. Not often though.
Yeah, I have minor scoliosis. I always hated those checks in gym class, but yes, sciatica wrecked me for 2 weeks the first time I had it. And I thought it was just lower back pain, but it's actually in your upper thigh. And the solution was massage. I went to a sports therapist who massaged, and it took 15 minutes, and she basically fixed my sciatica with a deep tissue massage. But it's irrelevant because that's probably not what Jeff did in his paddle boat over the weekend. Happy 4th of July, I guess. Happy Treason Day.
God, I don't even know, man. Okay, so we're not even getting into mental health corner yet, and this isn't even really a mental health corner thing, but it's kind of but except it kind of is. So I feel kind of like an asshole for saying this, but at the same time, this is genuinely a protective thing that I need to do for my mental health and for other things. But I can't be bothered to be upset or care or get to mad about this election that Biden is absolutely going to lose. I'm so upset by the prospect of another 4 years of Trump. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't have the energy to either to be engaged, outraged, or even I don't even want to think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I know exactly what you mean. I have already lost hope, and Project 2025 is scary as shit. And I can't spend all day thinking about it. What I have done is focus more on local politics and grassroots efforts that really have nothing to do with the presidential election, because like you said, it's almost a lock. I will not go so far as to make a prediction, but
Right.
in my opinion, it's a lock for Trump, and we are fucked. And the Supreme Court is just decision after decision it's the most activist court in history. And I just can't spend all day thinking about this. I limit myself to 20 minutes of news/outrage a day. And then I just move on, focus on things I can actually control and change, and not lose hope. Because there's no hope out there right now.
Right.
It's fucked up.
No, that's totally. I'm in a very similar thing because it's so upsetting to think about on so many levels, and it's not that I'm wanting to be head in the sand. I don't care. It's almost kind of the inverse. It's no, I care so much, but I know there's nothing that I can do.
It's self-protection.
That's exactly
survival.
what it is. That's exactly what it is. And honestly, it's one of those things where I don't know if this is how people become apathetic. Maybe it is. It feels different. It feels like usually people don't go through the sorts of trauma that we as a society collectively have gone through since 2016, right? With, the first Trump thing and then pandemic and everything else. But because we were just so polarized, because things are so bad, because it's just thing on top of thing on top of thing, the Supreme Court, you think about when you think about the ultimate bad decisions. I mean, obviously, people can be understandably upset about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and saying she should have left before she did, which maybe is true. But at the same time, even if she had left with plenty of time, I'm not convinced that Obama ever would have been able to get the
Yeah.
confirmation at the time, right? Like I think that we were just kind of fucked because they weren't playing hardball enough. Like everybody just assumed, okay, well, 2016 is a lock, so we don't have to push and have these Supreme Court appointments when they needed to really have them, in 2016 when there was plenty of time, right? When you would still potentially have a fuck court, but it wouldn't be to the level that it is now. And it's just like that more than even like the election and other things are the things they're going to have these, like carry on ramifications that are
Lasting
so upsetting.
repercussions. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Because that's the real thing. Like the Supreme Court stuff that, like the stuff that they, keep rolling back. And not even just on women's rights, but on so many other levels. Like it's so disturbing and it's so upsetting on so many, issues that it's like that's the thing that we'll have 30 plus that we can't unravel, right? That even if we had a good candidate to run right now, which we don't, like what's going to happen, right? Because the unfortunately the age of the justices that you need to get out it doesn't align,
Well,
right? Like
I mean, there's the option to expand the Supreme Court, which
but not
has its own lasting repercussions.
totally, but that's not going to happen when there's unless you have a supermajority in both houses. You won't ever get that passed. And even then, that's not even a guarantee because that's a risk, right? Like, so, okay, we expand the court for 3 more seats. Great. What does that mean? Like when powers shift again, like there's very valid reasons why that sort of thing has not happened before. And it's, I don't know. Yeah.
From absolutely a mental health corner. We have begun the mental health corner.
We've begun the mental health corner. Yeah. So I'll just kind of start and kind of finish. Like I'm doing okay. I had some stressful stuff last week, work related, that I was able to get through, but it was a lot. I went to a conference in San Francisco. It was a really good event, but the lead up to the event, there was just a lot of stuff that was involved with it that came in pretty hot, even hotter than usual. And as much as like ADHD is a superpower for like tight deadlines, there are some things that like there just aren't enough man hours for, and that can just be too much. But things went well. But I was it was like the event ended on Thursday, like the day of the debate, and I was in a bar. I was in the hotel bar like while the debate was happening, and like they had it on one of the TVs, but not even all of them. And just watching, just even silence, like with without even any captions or anything on, I was just like filled with dread. And I was like, okay, you know what? Executive decision. I'm not fucking with this. I'm not opening Twitter. I'm not engaging. I caught up the next day, and it was exactly as bad as I anticipated it would be. But I'm very glad I didn't watch it in real time. Go on.
I'm just going to interject this.
Yes.
In a poll, only 65% of respondents thought that Trump won the debate. I don't understand how anyone doesn't think Trump won the debate.
No, this is a Nixon-Kennedy situation, right? Like
fact-checking aside, but
right, but who cares? I mean, well, that was the interesting thing from the polls, right? Was that I think anybody with eyes knew that or any level of cognition greater than Joe Biden's, which would I'm sorry, that's it, but I had to. It's right there. But like anybody with like a, just like a modicum of any sort of cognition or any ability, I think knew he won. But like the big thing is like that it didn't, at least from what the initial polls I saw it was like, it didn't change anybody's opinions, right? Like undecideds were still undecided.
Yeah.
And it's so partisan at this point, right? But the problem is that it's, and this is why there's so many calls from inside the house being like, we got to replace him. And it's like, it's too late, guys. Like that ship sailed. And a lot of people were trying to call for that months ago when they were pilloried and really attacked by the establishment, by the way. Some of the same people who are now like, man, we got to fix this. Like, yeah, we're kind of fucked. But like the worry is that people just aren't going to show up to vote because
who gives a fuck anymore?
Right. And also, what is it like? Yeah.
That said, I will absolutely show up to vote, and I will vote blue all the way down the ticket. Like that's just I honestly think a majority in Congress would be more effective than like they could stop Trump from causing some damage. Although Project 2025 basically gives all power to the executive branch, and Congress can't really stop basically populating all of government with sycophants. Yeah, it's going to be a mess. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail your.
No, it's
How many
okay.
conferences have you been to this year?
A bunch, but this was
Yeah.
just this yeah, but this was just like a last minute kind of ask, and, but it was good. It was an AI conference, the AI Engineer World's Fair. It was kind of a crappy name, but actually a really good event, and, I think it was a good mix of people, who, varying levels of how much they have awareness about, what's happening with generative AI and all those things. Some people are really actively involved. Some people, are more, peripheral. Some people kind of in between. I, despite not having any sort of like CS, traditional CS background, and certainly not into the level of stuff that, like the really good AI people are there for. Like I can't do the low level shit, but I've been getting more and more into, various APIs and playing with various models and stuff over the last, couple of years. And
Has there been any
interesting.
good has there been any good hackathon around generative AI? I haven't seen news about one.
That I don't know. But that's a good question. I bet there
That
probably
would
have been some, but I don't know. But yeah, because that would be a
that could
cool
be
thing.
pretty cool to see. We at Oracle are my team is doing a huge push on this AI hub where we're interfacing with all of the other teams at Oracle that are working with AI. And well, like Oracle has its own like kind of LLM and generative AI service that obviously is inferior because it's Oracle. But the teams that are making use of it are doing some really cool shit. Like there's one that uses drones to examine construction projects and reports failures. What are they called? Uh, Potential failures. Like it can analyze, like, say, a beam is rusting, like it can pick that up and it can process the data and give you a full report on like how many years will this last? What is the extent of the damage? And it uses AI to process all of the images from the drone, and it's cool. And
Awesome.
there's yeah, I've done 5 or 6 myself now, and every time I'm like, man, this is actually a reason. I give people a lot of shit about generative AI for the average person who's sending me emails written by AI that drive me nuts.
Sure.
Um, I don't know, people don't give the second prompt to like make this sound less like AI. But when it comes to like industry and practical uses, it blows my mind, and I would love to see a hackathon around it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that like when I was doing some kind of cursory searches while you were saying that, I think like some individual companies have been kind of doing things, but I
Sure.
don't know of any like big ones, like more broader, like kind of community things. But um,
I should push for an Oracle
you should honestly.
hackathon. That could be really good on my yearly review.
Yeah, no, that's how you get a promotion or like a raise or whatever. That's how you show value. Try to get that off the ground, and then write that up in your
Oracle
self
doesn't
review.
give raises anymore. I'm convinced I won't know what compensation I get until September, but I guarantee you there will be no raise, which means basically our pay is decreasing because
Right,
it's not
of
keeping up
inflation.
with
Yeah,
cost of living and
right.
inflation. So they're basically paying us less every year by not giving us even like a 5% raise. They give me like a bonus that amounts to like 1% of my yearly salary, and it means nothing. It literally means nothing. No, what's gonna save me is my first year at Oracle, my bonus was, 100,000
RSUs.
RSUs,
Nice.
and they vest yearly, so this year I'll get a quarter of that, and Oracle stock is great right now. And, I'll take it.
Hmm.
That's a good bonus. That's
Yeah.
like a 4-year bonus they gave me.
No, I mean, that's amazing. No, when I joined Microsoft, my sign-on amount of stock was actually really insulting in retrospect, but I didn't know that, and I didn't know what to ask for and all of that. But because when I joined the company, the stock was like $65 at the time or something. By the time like the initial, I think it was a 4-year period or whatever, by the time it all vested, like because it was one of those things where like it would vest, annually, like the stock at that point had like 4x'd. So it wound up being like the total value that I got out of it, wound up being still not enough, but
Sure, sure.
but a lot better, and
Yeah.
I've
Not
had
as
similar.
insulting as it was initially, sure.
Exactly. And I've had a couple of special stock awards, that, things they try to give you for retention and stuff like that. In addition to like whatever, I get as part of like my yearly compensation. And one year, when they issued it, the stock was like 256 or something like that, which at the time was kind of like a high. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't know if this is going to be like a thing that pays off or not. And at some point, like there were certain vest periods where like I would like be underwater, with that amount. But
Sure.
now because the stock is like 460 or something like that, like even that, like the hard thing is going to be, and this is why I think like a lot of people are like calling like for like they really like employees especially, but like I think a lot of people like they want the stock to split because it's like getting close. Yeah, like as we're recording this, which is
460 a share?
468. Yeah. For
Holy shit.
$468. Yeah. And when I got in,
I need a new job.
yeah, well, I wish that we could split because if they split the stock, it would
What
still
does that
be.
mean? What does that mean?
Okay, so a stock split basically means that they will uh divide the number of available shares in half. And so if you
Oh,
owned, so basically to have a bigger offering so that you could bring more people into it. But what it also essentially does is that if you bought in, so like let's say like you bought in at $65, and now it is $468. If the stock split and it became 234 a share, your number of outstanding shares would be doubled, but your cost average, if you bought in like at 65 or whatever, would still potentially have more room for a run up. See what I'm saying?
I don't because I'm really bad at this kind of thing. I'm
Okay,
gonna
so
take your word for it.
so the idea would just be your total number of shares would double. So your value would be the same,
Okay.
but at that point you have another
Gotcha.
chance where you
Okay.
could have another run up, right? So whereas okay, so if usually what happens like Nvidia split a few weeks ago, and so Nvidia had been and they're one of the most valuable companies in the world right now, but like their stock had gone super high and it split a few weeks ago. What that does is that allows people who would otherwise not be able to buy in because it was too high to get in. But B, it means that there's another opportunity, like if there's another run up, right? So if it's 127 right now, but let's say it has like another rally and it goes to like 175 by the end of the year, then that means that people who, owned it earlier could potentially like double their returns, or not double, but like have higher returns because their the number of shares would be higher.
Okay, you're making sense to me. I get this.
But
I get this one concept. This is now a money corner. So I just this week took out a loan against my 401k.
okay.
And I did a bunch of research before I did this, but I was able to take out enough money to pay off all my outstanding loans. And at about 10% interest rate, but on a 401k loan, you pay the interest to yourself because it's your money.
Right.
And so that sounds great to me. You're not earning interest
Right.
on all of the money you've withdrawn. But when I did my own number crunching to see like what I was going to lose in interest versus what I was going to gain in the total
Mhm.
based on the extra interest I was paying in.
Right.
It made good sense to me. So I paid off all my other loans and came out with enough money for home improvement projects.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and now my only loan is paid back to myself. So do you know it? What do you know about 401k loans? I'm just kind of putting it out there.
I don't know a lot about them except that I know that there are sometimes like penalties that can be involved. Like you can take them off for certain purposes and you can get them back for certain things. Like so, I know that there are ways that you can do it that could be more beneficial. I
Yeah,
think
right.
usually, because I think usually the problem is like because the interest rate, like the 10% or whatever, like that's not that much. Like that's better than a credit card. That's probably going to be about the
It
same.
was better than it was point point three better than my lowest interest rate. So it is my lowest interest rate loan. And you're right. If you wanted to take out, I think it's 50% of the value of your 401k, then there are penalties unless it meets certain criteria.
Right.
It's like, I think it's called a hardship loan. And you have to provide paperwork that there is, like, you lost your job, whatever.
Right.
But for the amount I took out, there are no tax penalties. There are no additional deductions made. So I took out basically the smallest amount you can take out without penalties, which honestly, like, I didn't start building when I left AOL, I had like, I think 30K in my retirement fund, and I rolled it over, and then over the course of 7 years as an unsuccessful indie developer, I basically withdrew most of it with penalties and paid all the tax penalties on it, and by the end, I had, like, 10 grand in it, which I rolled over into, Oracle, and since then, I have been putting in like 15% of my paycheck, and 6% of that is matched, and add in my RSU value. And it's not a great retirement fund. Like, honestly, and I've said this before, but I could afford a pretty nice car to live in at this point. Except I think San Francisco outlawed living in cars. But where I live, you could still live in a car, and that's my retirement plan. Me and Elle living in, I don't know, like it would probably be a Nissan, like a higher end Nissan. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. Anyway.
I mean, look, you at least have a house. Like that's the real thing. Like you have like at least like,
Elle
something that
has a house.
well, Elle has a house, but but like one of you has a house,
Right,
you know,
right.
you know.
Yeah. Even though I basically pay the mortgage on it, my name is not on it at this point. Maybe I should change that. Maybe I would be more comfortable. Like right now, I invest all the money for home improvement projects comes from me. But if we broke up, there's no legal reason she would have to,
Right.
like, we have agreements about, like, if worse comes to worse, upon the sale of this house, you will be compensated for the investments you made in it. But it's not a legally binding. Like, I trust Elle. I love Elle to death. But I have no, like, legally binding stake in this property.
I mean, maybe that should change, right? And it's not because like you said, like you don't there's lack of trust or lack of love with them or anything, right? But it might make you feel more comfortable about
Yeah.
how you go
Yeah.
about things and also feel like, like makes the investment feel maybe even like more real. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Like, I get a little queasy dropping 10 grand on new windows. Like watching I have my own savings, and I like to keep it at a certain point. Like, I
Right.
feel like it gives me a sense of, like, well-being and comfort to have at X number of dollars in my savings account. And in this case, in my Apple savings account, because holy shit, that is the best return rate out there
Totally.
right now. But anytime that gets like you take 10 grand out of it, and I feel less mentally okay. Okay, it's a mental health corner again. Money
Yeah.
is mental health.
It totally
Like
is.
this is all mental health. Comfort and stability and all of these things are heavily related to money, which is heavily related to privilege, obviously. But yeah, money is mental health.
Yes, 1000%.
And I have been broke. I have been destitute. I've been homeless. Like, I understand the psychological ramifications of not knowing if you can afford groceries. And that is a place I never want to be again. I want to hedge my bets all the time. I want a job at GitHub, but I don't trust that I don't trust that my job at Oracle will last forever. But anyway, yep, this is still mental health. I feel like I've done my mental health corner.
Yeah, this is a weird one, but I feel like we both were able to get like our mental health corner like out of the way. It was kind of like a good like joint one. Like that was kind of weird. Like we've been doing this podcast for so long that we were just kind of a back and forth, like kind of shared like mental health corner, all about like politics and money, the two things that everybody wants to think about, but that genuinely
Right.
are mental health, right? They genuinely are.
Right.
These are things that, at least for me, those are definitely two things that impact
The
my mental health.
highest source of conflict in couples, politics and money.
Totally.
Are we a couple? We're kind of a couple. We're a
Couple.
podcast. We're like podcast couple.
Yeah, totally. You're definitely like my pod spouse for sure.
Yeah. All right. So do we want to do a quick sponsor break and then move on?
Yeah, let's do that. All right. This episode is brought to you by ExpressVPN. All right. Going online without ExpressVPN is like leaving your laptop unattended at the coffee shop while you run to the bathroom. Most of the time, in fact, almost all the time, you're probably going to be fine. But what if one day you come out of the bathroom and your laptop is gone? Side note, this happened to me once, although not at a coffee shop. I left my laptop at my office and I came back in the next day and it was gone. And it was a pretty terrible feeling. So even though 99% of the time you're going to be fine, ExpressVPN is a great thing to add to your arsenal when you're going online, because everybody does need a VPN of some sort. When I'm at a hotel, for instance, having a VPN is a really good thing to have in your arsenal, whether you're using it because you want to protect yourself. If you're on weird Wi-Fi networks, say you're in an airport or you're at a hotel, or maybe you're on some sort of like conference Wi-Fi that's a little bit sketch and you're like, hey, I know that most of the websites that I visit are encrypted and that's great. So I'm not really worried about sending my passwords across, in plain text, but I don't know if I really like the fact that somebody is going to be logging everything that I'm doing while I'm on this network. A VPN, especially if you're using a service like ExpressVPN where they don't log, is really good because you're not going to, A, have your information sold by data brokers, but B, you don't need to worry about kind of people spying on what sort of activities or what sort of traffic is taking place on your network, because they're not able to see it. So I think that ExpressVPN is a great VPN. I've used it for a really long time. One, it is very secure. So it would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. So it is encrypted in addition to various other provisions that they have place. The other thing is that it's really, really easy to use. You can get it up and running with just a click of a button to get protected. But the thing that I really appreciate about it is that it works on all sorts of devices. So phones, laptops, tablets, you can even get it running on like a Fire TV sticks and things like that. So this is one of those services where a lot of times some VPN services work better than others on multiple types of devices. ExpressVPN works everywhere. Really big fan of that. I actually was at a hotel a few weeks ago that was being weird about the fact that I was running a BitTorrent daemon in the background and it didn't want me to connect on their network. So basically I had to stop the daemon, connect to the network, connect to ExpressVPN, and then I was able to load, my protocol again, and the hotel Wi-Fi couldn't tell me what to do with my information because it couldn't see it, which was pretty great. So big fan of using VPNs for lots of reasons, including getting around onerous hotel Wi-Fi restrictions. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/overtired. That's EXPRESS VPN.com/overtired. And you can get an extra 3 months free. That is expressvpn.com/overtired.
Nice job, Christina. So, side note, like they made this, the notes for the read were all about online security, which, like, as you cleverly worked into the read, is not the primary use of VPNs anymore. Like,
Right.
so much of the web is encrypted,
All of it is.
and VPN, if you're worried about your passwords, don't. Like, I think all browsers will warn you now before entering a password on a non-SSL encrypted site.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
every browser has something in place, whether it's a little lock bar or an actual pop-up that says, hey,
Yeah. No,
you might
they
want to
got-
think twice about this.
Exactly. They're like, are you really, really sure? Are you positive? And people because there's still a contention of people who are like very much, I will never encrypt my website. And this is just a scam from the certificate authorities. And it's like, what? No, there's nothing wrong with SSL, but that isn't the only reason why you use a VPN because
Right. Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And I like where you took that read. I appreciate that. Let's talk about the Sonos Ace headphones.
Yeah, because we both got them.
Our friend of the show, Brian Guffey, got us a great deal on some Sonos Ace headphones, and I jumped on it because I am always looking for comfortable over-the-ear headphones. My ear canals just do not work for earbuds.
Yeah.
I bought multiple iterations of AirPods that sound okay but don't fit my ears, or like the one in my right ear always falls out no matter what cup size I choose for it. So over the years, like the only way to go for me. And like these headphones we're using for these Sonys we use for the podcast, they're comfy. I can wear them for 2 hours about before my ears start hurting. But I wanted a really good pair for watching TV, watching movies, and music listening. And so I jumped on this deal. And honestly, at the price you and I paid, they are fantastic headphones.
They're no-brainers. They're fantastic. Where it gets hard is that the MSRP is $450, which granted, it's not that difficult for people to, find certain sales or get discount codes. If a lot of corporations even will have some sort of, like Sonos, discount. Like I know that Microsoft, and so by extension, GitHub does. But $450 is a lot of money for a pair of headphones. And so at that price point, you're going up against Bose, Sony, and Apple. The Apple, AirPods Max are $550. I don't recommend anybody buy those right now because unless the sale is really good, because the rumors are that a new version with the USB-C will be coming out. Apparently, they're not going to be making many other changes, but that will be coming out. But the thing is that if you already have AirPods Max, even if you were very deeply embedded in the Sonos ecosystem, I don't think that you need to buy these headphones. But if you are somebody who is looking for a pair like you are, Brett, of like good over-ear noise canceling headphones, they are very, very comfortable.
Oh my
they
God,
are very premium.
The noise canceling is insanely good.
It's very good. It's very, very good. I used them last week on a plane. And so I was able to give them like a real test. Like I actually left my AirPods at home and I just took the Sonos with me, which I thought was like a really good travel test to kind of compare like, okay, how do these compare against these things that I've worn every day for 4+ years? And really, really well. Like I would say that the noise canceling is right up there against, Sony and Bose, who are kind of like the leader in that. And then the transparency mode, where you can kind of hear background things coming in too, it's pretty good. It's not as good as on the AirPods Max, but it's or even the AirPods Pro 2, but it's really, really solid. Big thing for me is like, I don't know what your experience has been like, incredibly comfortable. Like,
Incredibly comfortable. And like, I don't have like the Sony or the AirPods Max to compare to, but the audio quality is the best I have I own 8 pairs of over-the-ear headphones in various price ranges. And the Sonos Ace trumps them all.
yeah,
It's a really good pair of headphones. Like you said, like it's a competitive market, and I'm sure it depends. Like I said at the beginning, at the price you and I
at the
paid,
price that we got them at, it's a
amazing.
no-brainer. It's amazing. It's harder at MSRP. And the only reason I say that is that I feel like if you already have things in the Sonos ecosystem, because right now, how I think that a lot of people envisioned how these would work would be that you would be able to wirelessly tune into any of your Sonos speaker zones that are happening throughout your house. And if that were the case, at this price point at 450, that would be, I think, for a lot of people like a kind of a no-brainer, right? Because like, okay, I could tune into, this room where this thing is happening, or maybe this room where I have my turntable connected or something else. But that's not the case. How it works right now is that they only work with the Sonos Arc soundbar, although it apparently is going to be coming to some of the less expensive soundbars later this year. And so anything that's connected to that soundbar, so anything that's connected to your TV, your video game consoles, if you had a turntable connected to that or whatever, like that would all work over Bluetooth and not over wireless. But that's the only one that has the audio switching feature with right now. And so for the Sonos aspect of it, like it's hard for me to kind of say it. I guess it depends on how deeply embedded into the ecosystem you are. But I think that the real thing is that it's like if you're in that market for like a premium pair of noise canceling headphones for travel and you take the Sonos part out of it, I think they're really good. But as you said, it is a competitive space. I think Apple, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, there are some things about AirPods that are just better just because of the things they do with the H1 chip. I don't think that the headphones are better overall. In fact, I'm annoyed by many aspects of things with AirPods Max, but the things that it does really well, like, seamlessly switching between devices and some of the other stuff is just no one matches that. So if you have a lot of things in the Apple ecosystem and you already have AirPods Max, I don't think you need to look at these. But for most people who aren't in that class, I definitely think they're worth looking into, especially if you can get them on sale. But I will say the hard thing is the Sonys, I haven't used the Leas Bose, although they're apparently incredible, but like the Sony's XM5s are very frequently on sale. And so it's hard to kind of pit the two against one another just at MSRP. Having said that, yeah, I mean, for a first round of headphones, I think they've done a really, really good job. And certainly if you can get like a good deal on them, they're really, really good.
So I can tie this into a secondary topic, but it fascinates me that headphones are not a quote unquote mature tech where like new iterations are actually significantly better.
Yeah.
If you look at iPhones, like, okay, so I just yesterday got an iPhone 15 Max Pro, and that was an upgrade from the iPhone 12 that I used for years. And I just never saw a reason to upgrade. The cameras got better over time. Some features got better over time, but not enough to be like, I'm going to trash this iPhone 12 that I already have paid off and it's been a trusty companion. Finally, I don't even like the buttons got less responsive. Battery life wore down. So I finally upgraded to an iPhone 15 and switched my cell service from Verizon to Visible. And now I pay a total of $250 a year for using Verizon towers.
Wow.
And yeah, it's insanely cheap. And I pay $40 a month as part of a loan for this new iPhone. But I was paying $120 a month to Verizon after paying off my phone. And like that, the cost difference is, it's crazy. I'm getting a whole year for what I would pay Verizon in 2 months. So anyway, like I hope someday again Mint will sponsor this show. But basically any of those little, I don't know what they're called, baby bells,
Yeah.
um, that use, T-Mobile or Verizon towers and give you the same coverage for a fraction of the price. But anyway, the point of this is the iPhone 15 is impressive. I love that I can shoot any photo and it takes depth information in every, I mean, you can turn this off, but in every photo, and you can turn any regular photo into a portrait and fuzz the background, or change the focus of any portrait mode. Like, that's cool. That's not worth $1,000, but it's cool. I dig that. There are a few. The camera is very cool.
Yeah, the camera's really good. And the Apple Intelligence stuff is going
Oh,
to
I
be,
haven't used that at all.
well, it's not available for anybody yet.
Is it in the it's not in the beta?
No. But when it does come out, they've said that like basically the lowest level of phones that will be able to support it will be like the 15 and like the 15 Pro. So
Enough.
so you'll actually be
I
able to use that stuff.
People on Mastodon were razzing me about not waiting for the announcement in a couple months. But honestly, like, I am always 2 or 3, even 4 years behind. Like, I used to always have to have the new phone. I would
Right.
be at the store the day it came out, and I always had to have the latest thing. And I got on like the Verizon Edge plan so I could always trade in
Yep.
my phone at any time. And I think iPhones became mature tech.
Yeah,
And
I would agree with that.
the benefits, the improvements were incremental enough that, I mean, Apple, all companies right now in the mobile phone industry are struggling to give people a reason to discard their old phone. They're no longer as discardable as they used to be. We've hit like a point where an iPhone 12 is still good in 2024. It's a great
Yeah.
phone.
It is a great phone. I still have an iPhone 12 that I use sometimes as like a continuity camera thing,
Sure.
like that I just use, as a webcam instead of using something else. And it's great for that. But yeah, you're right. Like we've kind of reached that point where like phones are, for a lot of people, even enthusiasts, good enough. Like I still buy one every year. I think the only year I didn't get a new phone in 15 years or so was the iPhone 13, and that was because it was going to take them a long time to get it to me in the color I wanted. And by the time that happened, I was like, I don't actually want the phone because there aren't any real changes, and
Yeah.
I don't need it. And honestly, I could probably wait longer than that with other things. But I'm part of like you, I was either part of like the Verizon like Edge upgrade program, where I do like the Apple early upgrade thing and whatnot. But yeah, you're not wrong. It's pretty mature tech. And the thing is, headphones, a lot of it is mature, but what's gotten better, especially if you haven't been in the game for a long time, is that the noise canceling has significantly improved even in the last 5 or 6 years. Like it's really, really good now. There are still, issues around Bluetooth, but like they're still able to do things, with
But
like,
is that
premium
a
headphones.
Bluetooth problem, or is it a headphone hardware problem?
I mean,
Like
it's both,
Bluetooth
but it is a Bluetooth
itself
issue.
just seems a little buggy.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's both, right? Like it's a Bluetooth problem insofar as the Bluetooth standard remains buggy and a problem and an issue when you're trying to do certain things. And so the solution is either to fortify the standard and make Bluetooth better for everybody, which is complicated and takes a long time, or to do things like what Apple did, which is basically just creating their own custom chips to offload some of the things that the Bluetooth can't do. Or and I think Sonos, people were expecting them to use like just have like Wi-Fi, like wireless headphones. Like why can't I just connect them, to my existing speaker sets. The issue with that is actually a power one. The processor power, I think it was the CEO of Sonos, but I'm not sure. It was someone high up said to The Verge, that basically the power that even in the latest headphones that are put out, like the chips that are in them are not as powerful as what they've got in their speakers. And not to mention, the fact that you still have to struggle with, okay, well, like, how do we balance, like good battery life and battery sizes with making sure that these things are going to be lightweight on your head and like won't, be too heavy and make that whole part of it bad. So, like, there are a lot of things you have to balance. But there are like ebbs and flows where there are some years where it's like, yeah, there really haven't there have not been any improvements. And then you have eras where you're like, oh, actually things have improved a whole lot. So, yeah. But I totally understand what you're saying. Sorry, go on.
No, the other solution I have for my ear canals not working for earbuds is bone conductor headphones.
Yeah. How do you like those?
Oh my God, they're amazing. Like, it doesn't have the richness of sound that a good, like a high quality over the ear headphone has, but for like watching TV, watching movies. So my big, like, even my 32-inch TV is overwhelming for overstimulating for them. And I generally, if we're watching together, we watch on an iPad. It's a small enough screen that it doesn't, of course, they're usually knitting anyway, and they just look up when there's no vocals, but there's audio that clearly indicates something's happening visually. That's when they look up to keep track. It always impresses me how they can do both at once. But when I'm watching alone, I usually need to keep it quiet. And so I have a pair of Bluetooth bone conductor headphones that connect to my TV, and I can't believe, like, I'll ask Elle, can you hear what's happening right now? Because they feel like they're like open back headphones. And it fascinates me that I can have volume up and Elle can't hear a thing. Like, it's just conducting through my jaw and sounding really good. I take them on walks. I have them connected to multiple devices. But the reason I bring it up is because, interestingly, they connect to every device they've ever connected to. When I turn them on, I hear connected, connected, connected. And like, it's connecting to all these devices, and whatever device is playing, they switch to. It's buggy as hell, because I'll be watching TV and it'll say disconnected, but the TV, like, the sound doesn't stop. So it disconnected from some other device, and it's disconcerting. Like, it works, but honestly, Bluetooth is just weird to me. It honestly seems like we could do better.
Yeah, we could. I think the problem is like, how do you make a standard, right? Because the thing is, like, Bluetooth sucks, but at the same time, like, it's backward compatible with a lot of things. Like, even if things like, like multi-point, only work for certain versions, and like, they've got to support, a whole range of devices, from like, old video game consoles to cars that people, will not be able to, in many cases, ever update anything with Bluetooth in, to, older phones, to all kinds of other devices. Like, it's a hard thing to make a standard like Bluetooth that's been around for as many years as it has, and improve it. But I agree with you. We could have something better.
I mean, USB finally is good. Like,
Yeah.
by USB-C is a great protocol. It's a great physical adapter.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's also really confusing. It's finally good, but it's also like, what version of what USB-C cable do you need, right? Like, there's like, that's still kind of a cluster.
Yeah. The iPhone 15 has a USB-C charger.
Yep.
Which means that all of my little charging stations around the house, which are all Lightning, all USB-A to Lightning setups, now I need either USB-A to USB-C cables, or I need to replace the hubs with USB-C hubs So that's going to take a little getting used to. But honestly, I mean, it's the same when we went from 32-pin connectors,
Totally.
like everyone complained because they had to replace all their
No, yeah,
adapters and everything.
this is much easier because we already have a bunch of USB-C things, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
at this point, like I even like when I got my iPhone 15 Pro Max or whatever in September, I also bought, even though I didn't need them, because I literally just bought a second pair because I lost one pair, left them in a hotel and they were taken, which fine, my bad on that. But I'd lost a pair of AirPods Pro 2s, which are really, really good. And I had to buy a replacement pair because I needed them. And I was like, I can't go this long without them. I didn't know that they were going to come out with the USB-C version like a month and a half later. And so I was able to rationalize buying them for myself by giving them to my colleague and friend who I was on a trip with. And I was like, Erin doesn't have AirPods and she needs AirPods. And I also, they were like $50 off through Amazon like the first week that they were like out. But
That's
one of the
still
reasons,
very generous of you.
yes, but my real selfish aspect of that was I do genuinely like to just like gift people things, you know, and so giving Aaron the AirPods was great. The bigger thing, I was like, this will make the transition that much easier for me because now the only lightning thing that I use with any regularity, other than my, you know, Apple mouse and Magic, you know, keyboard and Magic trackpad or whatever, which, you know, I don't travel with those, so that's not a big deal, will be my AirPods Max. That will be the only lightning thing that I really have. Everything else will be USB-C. So I was, you know, incrementally, I'd already kind of upgraded and switched a lot of things over. So you'll probably find that too. I know for my parents, my mom has the iPhone 15 Pro Max, but my dad has an iPhone 14 Plus. And so they are split. And so each of their cars, I have, you know, kind of set things up. I've tried to get them more into using wireless charging since they both can. And B, so I bought a number of the Belkin MagSafe 2 pads because they're cheaper than the Apple ones, but they are the exact same. They're the same, you know, charging speed or whatever. And then making sure that each of their cars like has like a lightning and a USB-C. But then, you know, I try to switch my mom over to kind of like teach her, like, okay, this is, you know, it's going to be a little bit annoying, but two pairs of your AirPods use one, you know, way to charge. One of them uses another, but it's the same as your phone. It's going to be a few years until everybody's switched over, but it'll be nice. Like in a couple of years, everything will switch over.
There are cables that have their USB-C cables, but attached to the end is a little dongle you can slip over it to make it lightning. Which so basically you have one cable that can do both, and that's because L's on an iPhone 13,
Right.
which is still lightning. So yeah, we have this. I have this little charging station that like I snaked a cable under our couch and brought it out to this just little hub so that we don't have cables running across the floor and we can charge all our devices from the couch. And now we have to have both USB-C and lightning cables in what is a very small hub. But it is doable. But I like this idea of one cable that can do both because we rarely need to charge at the same time. Okay, so we're at an hour approximately. How much do you have an extra 20 minutes?
I do.
Okay, because I have two more topics I want to hit before we get to Grapptitude.
You got it.
First of all, and I should have mentioned this earlier, I saw Jeff this last weekend. And together we went to Palmer's in Minneapolis and saw Erin Dawson, friend of the show, previous guest, coworker of mine. We saw her black metal band play, and I had heard some of her solo recordings before, and I had told her this is good. It's not my thing. But when I saw her band is called Genital Shame. And when I saw them play, I was blown away. It was so good. And she is a fucking goddess of like metal guitar. And it was I was ecstatic. I loved it so much. It was so good. Um,
Awesome.
and I bought a T-shirt. I have a genital shame T-shirt. I will be supporting
Fucking
and her
great.
her band because she is genital shame and she plays with a backing band. And the backing band is actually another band in their own right, I think in Milwaukee. Um, but I got to meet all of them and they were super cool. The drummer especially was obviously ADHD, as 90% of drummers seem to be.
Yeah.
And like we clicked and we had so much fun and it was such a great night. It was such a great trip. And on that trip, I went to this place called Owamni. And if you're in Minneapolis for any reason, get a reservation and go to Owamni. It's not expensive. It's native cuisine. So it's run by native peoples, like First Nation peoples, and they only use ingredients that are native to the area. So there's no beef, there's no wheat. It's basically a gluten-free menu. The meat they serve is like bison and duck, elk maybe. I don't eat meat, so I just had a mushroom taco on a corn tortilla that blew my fucking mind. Like I was crying at the table. I had a corn taco and a mushroom taco and a stout beer, and I got out of there for like a total of $40. And
Damn.
I'm sitting at the table. I went by myself. I couldn't find anyone to have dinner with, so I went by myself. I'm alone at a table, tearing up because I am so blown away. It was so like I was thinking lately about happiness, about am I happy? And I feel like everyone does this pretty regularly.
Yeah.
But I was like, when am I happiest? And it's always around food. I think I might be a foodie because like
I can believe
this
that.
meal was just pure joy for me. And I swear I have no hesitation saying anyone living or visiting Minneapolis really needs to go to Owamni. It's so good.
Okay. Well, I put that on the list if I ever go to Minneapolis. But that's really, really great to know. And also, I'm glad that you were able to see Erin's band and or Erin, and her backing band, and see her rock so hard.
It was so cool.
We were talking about drums. I sent you in our group chat videos, but I hope both you and Jeff could watch so we can talk about them in future episodes. For whatever reason, the YouTube algorithm served me this thing, which was Megadeth drummer playing. I'd never heard Mr. Brightside playing that for the same time, and is this guy Dirk? He's young, right? So he's like one of the current Megadeth drummers. He's not like going way back and whatnot, but he's very, very good. And he somehow never heard Mr. Brightside. I don't know how, but never heard that.
Great song.
Amazing song, right? And it's weird because he's like I think he might even be younger than me. I don't even know. So I don't know how he missed the song, but he missed it. He'd also never heard Paramore, Misery Business, and they did a follow up with him on that. But this, I guess, this drum, online service or whatever, like they have a really good YouTube channel, and I don't know anything about drumming and whatnot, but basically what they do is they play people like a song they've never heard for the first time, but the version that he hears doesn't have the drum parts in it. All of that has been silenced. So he has to come up on the spot, like, okay, how would I play the drums in this? So he's writing out as he's listening to the song, he's writing out like the song structure, and then he, can take as much time as he wants. And he's a pro, so he usually like a real pro, like he, will usually just like jump in like after he's heard it once and like, put in the drums as he kind of wrote out, and then we'll listen to the final version. And it was really, really interesting to see like what he did on both of those songs. Like just as somebody who is not a musician in that way, has never played the drums and wouldn't be able to do that. Like, but just watching like his whole process, freaking awesome. Like
That
incredibly
sounds
cool.
amazing.
Like incredibly cool. Like I have to give like this Drumeo company or whatever, like kudos. Like they've figured out really good genres of content for people, and they probably do a good job pushing people to using, their services or whatever it is that they're, trying to like shill for. But really cool concept. So I think that
Yeah,
you'll like that.
I'm looking forward to that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, so I'm giving a talk at Backstock. Sign up using code TTSCOFF if you haven't gotten tickets yet. I wrote as I always do, I wrote my whole presentation in a mind map, which is just, it's how I think, it's how I organize. And I wrote it in iThoughts, which is now discontinued, and that's very sad, but I think it'll work for a few years. One of the features it has is presentation mode, and you can select nodes in the map and add a slide for that node, and you can create basically builds like one step at a time, like selecting each node off of a parent and like creating a slide for it. And then when you go into presentation mode, you go full screen, you dim all non-focused nodes, and then it like pans around the map and like zooms in on whatever you saved as a slide. And it's way cooler than what I would have built in like Keynote. With the right style for your map, which I have heavily customized, it is just amazing presentation software. If you think in mind maps and you just want to go straight from mind map to presentation, iThoughts can export into PowerPoint format, but it kind of sucks at it. It doesn't make anything beautiful or usable out of it. But this presentation mode, slides focusing on specific nodes, so good. And no other mind map software that I know of can do this. And I sent an email to Craig yesterday, asking if he had considered handing off the code base to anyone else. And I volunteered to
Take it on.
Luke from Hookmark asked me if I wanted to take over Hookmark, as he wanted to retire. And I gave that a lot of thought and decided it wasn't, it's a great app and I use it all the time, but I didn't want to be responsible for the customer support on something that most people find very confusing. So I kind of passed on that. But iThoughts, dude, if I could be like, I'm Brett Terpstra, I develop Marked, NV Ultra, and iThoughts. If all of those came to fruition, I would be a developer to contend with. But
Totally.
anywho, that was a long spiel about iThoughts. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's great. And I mean, honestly, like if there's a way, like I don't know how much it would cost for you to like take it on. Like I don't know what, like both to, take it onward, and also like what the cost would be, to, maintain it and all that stuff. But that could be really cool.
Yeah. I don't know what his current income off it is. It's probably not selling a lot direct, but like transferring it to a subscription model, you would lose customers, but you would also get recurring income. And I offered him like percentage of future income versus like buying the code base off him. I don't have the liquid cash to buy what I think it's worth.
Right.
Anyhow, we'll see what he says. I have no idea. It would be cool. It would be fun. Do you remember Tags, the app?
I do remember Tags. I loved Tags, as I recall.
I did inherit that app. At the time, it was right when Apple basically Sherlocked open meta
Yeah.
and made Finder tags a thing. And the developers of tags wanted tags to work with Apple's implementation
Right.
of KM user tags, whatever, which was an easy fix. Like, they gave me the code base like for free, and I was supposed to keep it alive. But at the same time, there was an OS upgrade that broke all of the Quartz graphic API that they were using. So not like rewriting it from using open meta tags to Finder tags, that's like a 15-minute job, no problem. Rewriting all of the GUI, that got real sticky for me, and it kind of, the app died in my hands. Like, I watched it like a heart slowly beating to death in my hands, and I felt pretty bad about that. Yeah. Back to mental health corner. Back to things I feel guilty and sad about.
Well, I mean, you did your best. I mean, that's the thing is that it's, one thing was an easy fix, right? Okay, to get it compatible with this new tagging system that, was also kind of obsoleting aspects of the app. But then the other thing is that if there's this, significant OS update that's going to require a bunch of other things going on, then like sometimes that's not what you sign up for, right? Like, you're like, okay, I can inherit this and do this one thing, and I can have the best intentions, but you didn't sign up to do a full app rewrite.
Right.
And
I really didn't.
Right.
I really didn't. It would be cool to try to revive it, but I really just want to get NB Ultra out the door. And I had a Zoom with Fletcher yesterday, and the thing that's been holding us up has been some store kit issues. There have been like minor bugs that we fixed Fletcher has fixed in the app itself. But the biggest thing was we couldn't get it to work with the subscription model on the App Store. And we're still on StoreKit V1 because we want to be compatible back to pre-OS 13 operating systems. That's important to Fletcher, less important to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, Fletcher runs old enough hardware that up until like last week when he finally got a new MacBook, like he couldn't even test on the latest version of Xcode because his machines were so outdated. So it's important to him to support older operating systems because I think he projects his unwillingness to upgrade his hardware onto the general Mac community.
Yeah.
Whereas like I get the analytics and
you're able to see X number of people are already on
OS
this.
12. OS 12 is 1% of my user base for Marked. Like, it just isn't, like, it's not worth supporting.
Right.
And so I don't. I support 2 operating systems in the rear view mirror. And then anything before that, sorry, no longer compatible. I provide older versions for them, but
no, totally, which is great. But it's hard, and it's great to do that. Like when you have an existing product that says, "Hey, I'll provide an older version. Not going to get bug fixes. It's not going to get the latest updates, but you can still use this version of Marked back to whatever." It's harder when you have a net new thing coming out, and you're looking at, okay, well, how far back do we want to go versus, what do we not want to do? Like a number of apps. I mean, not a ton of them have made this decision, but an increasing number of apps are even making the decision. Like, we're not going to compile for Intel, right? Like, even if we're not using anything that would make the, even if there's nothing about this app that
would be ARM specific. Yeah.
Right. We're just not going to bother with it because the latest, APIs and other things, it's not worth it. And it's just, an additional maintenance challenge. Right. And so I could see, like, if I were building like a brand new app today, depending on who my target audience was, I might just be like, fuck it, I'm not bothering with Intel. I think for an app like, NV Ultra, I don't think that's something you can do, right? Because a lot of your core base are going to be people who are going to still have older machines. But how far back you want to go also, is an open question.
I mean, we started NB Ultra so many years ago
Exactly.
that it's still an Objective-C. So trying to incorporate new Swift libraries into it takes some extra work. The code base is already outdated, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So we have plans for a rewrite for a V2, but we are selling on subscription, which means we don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of releasing a new version and demanding upgrade pricing and everything.
Right.
Yeah. So anyhow. Okay, that was a fun. I am talking so much. Let's do Grapptitude and let's you start. You talk.
Sure. Okay, so my Grapptitude this week is iTerm 2, which is an app I'm sure we've mentioned on previous Grapptitudes, but this is one that, despite the fact that this has been my, basically default like terminal emulator for I don't even know how long, right? Like I have it in my dock on all of my machines. It is one of the very first things I install on any new Mac. There's nothing wrong with terminal.app at all, but like iTerm 2 is just fucking better.
And Warp is a good app.
Yeah.
But it's really just trying to keep up with iTerm.
Yeah.
And iTerm is free.
iTerm is free in every sense of the word, right? Like it's actually like completely open source. Like I think like a GPL like V3, I think even like and
with a vibrant community around it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is actually kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to bring it up. So about a month ago, iTerm to introduce like a pretty big update that had been in the works for like some of the features that had been in the works for years, but basically version 3.5 came out, and one of the I guess kind of headline features was the fact that as an option there was a new AI feature that was not enabled by default, that if you wanted to go into your settings you could add in an OpenAI key. Yeah, an OpenAI API key, and you could basically use basically like kind of have kind of like a way to chat with your terminal. So to bring in some features that are very similar to some of the things that you can do with Warp. So like there's Fig, which basically had like, kind of like a, generative AI kind of terminal, command line thing. There's Warp. There are like a lot of these tools that are adding these things in so that the GitHub CLI has a Copilot component. It built into that now that started out as a different extension. So you can basically use natural language in your terminal and get really good things back. And this is a useful like case for generative AI, because like terminal man pages are really, really great with this. Like I don't have to think about like what's the process of writing an FFmpeg script to do this or to do something else or to use ImageMagick. Like there are a lot of services that are really great just to be able to talk to your terminal about that. And so iTerm 2 introduced this feature. I thought they did it in a pretty great way. It was certainly not installed by default, and nothing was at risk. Some very vocal members of the community, who I don't even know how much these people actually used the application, to be honest, looking at some of the things, lost their shit. Like I get it. Maybe you don't like AI stuff. Fine. That's fine. Keep in mind, this is free software in every sense of the word. It is both open source and it is actually free as in gratis. That, this guy who's built this app that so many of us rely on, like, doesn't like make direct money off of, basically, gets support contracts, or, it's from people like Brett and myself who are now donating to the cause. But people lost their fucking shit and were really gross and were saying like really negative things about the dev, and it was ridiculous. And he was like, look, these issues have been here. Like I've been working on some of these features for like over 2 years. Like this wasn't hidden from anybody. Like people were going to these ridiculous like links of agreements. Oh, you're in the shitification of everything. And I'm like, you don't even fucking know what the word means. Like, I get that everybody wants to say that everything's been shitified. And I'm like, this is not an example of that, right? Like, Cory Doctorow would not agree with that. It's really not.
Or what's his name with the rot economy? Ed Zitron. Like
Yeah.
this does not apply. None of this applies.
Not even remotely. So what the developer did because of the backlash came forward and was like, fine, I'll rip the feature out. I will release it as a separate plugin that you can install and enable. And once you have it installed and you put in your OpenAI, API key, then you can, put in kind of your prompt and you can, choose your model and that's fine. I actually think though the feature is pretty cool, and it's one of those things where you can write in natural language, but you can also kind of have a preview of like what things would look like if you wanted your terminal to do it, for you. Which obviously most people aren't going to trust, but it's it'll show you what needs to happen, and you can talk in like natural language through a chat menu, like with your terminal, which I think is pretty fucking cool. But even without the AI stuff, I just what that whole drama kind of highlighted for me, I was like, oh, I get a tremendous amount of value from this app and I don't pay for it. So I do now. I'm one of his GitHub sponsors. And so I'm in the credits of the app when you go to, the about page. And
You can see both Christina and my name and a small screenshot of the
yes,
about page.
just freaking great.
I can't believe there are only enough sponsors that can fit on an about dialogue.
I agree.
Like
It's very
so many
upsetting.
more people. Yeah, so many more people should be paying for this. Have you seen what Warp did with AI?
I
I'm
have.
gonna drop a link. It's
Cool.
it's very similar, but it's literally on the command line. It will recognize whether you're typing a command or you're typing in natural language. And you can just at the command line ask it, I want to see a Git log sorted in this way with these fields, and it will write the prompt for you, or it'll write the command for you. And I think it's really well done, but I do appreciate the kind of chat dialogue version that iTerm has, where you can if it gives you a command, like you said, you have the option to insert it directly into your terminal, or you have the option to edit it in place. And yeah, anyhow, good choice, good pick.
Yeah.
And
It's a great app, and honestly, like I'm giving a $10 a month
yeah,
kind of recurring
yep.
donation right now, but and I don't know how long I'll continue to do that, but like I figure I do it at least for a while because I've gotten tons of value of this app, for free over however long I've been using it.
I've done $10 for about a year now, so I've donated over $100 to this term. I mean, it's where I live.
Yeah,
I live
I
in
was gonna say,
terminal, and
I increasingly do, and like this is like I know that there's some terminal apps like Alacrity is apparently like a little bit faster certain things, and Kitty and other things, and like that's great. But like iTerm too is like a fucking great Mac app, and it is like I think like is the gold standard that everybody else holds themselves to.
Well, everyone, like I said, everyone's just trying to catch up.
Yeah,
It's like iTerm, every version that comes out, new features that everyone else is eventually going to try to copy.
totally. They have it first, and I mean, I will say, I feel like this is okay to share, because it's been several years. Well, it's been a number of years, probably 5 years now since this has been the case. But the Windows Terminal, which is one of my favorite apps on Windows, for a lot of reasons. I love the people who work on that, and it's open source, and it's one of my favorite projects from people at Microsoft. But I talked to that team when the Windows Terminal launched, and like they told me very clearly their kind of bellwether of like what they want to achieve was iTerm 2. And that to me, like that's why I knew. I was like, okay, this is why this is like these are cool ass people, and like why this is a project to pay attention to, because if that's what they're looking at, it's like as inspiration, like to me that's the right way to do it, right? Like like it made me have more be like, okay, the people who are going to be building this thing are people who will understand why a well-designed terminal is important. So yeah,
I'm sure you've noticed this. Have you seen that you can focus the output of any command just by clicking it with the mouse?
Yes.
Like it used to be, you could hit Command Shift A and select the full output of the last command. Now you can scroll through your unlimited history, click any output, and it will focus it and like dim everything else, and you can copy and reproduce commands and edit previous command. It's so good. Anyhow, yes, iTerm 2, which is on version 3.5.
Yes, exactly.
iTerm 2 3.5. My pick is, and I've been a home assistant. Like, I want to talk about a home assistant.
Yeah.
I've been using Indigo for years, a decade, to work with all of my Insteon and Zigbee and Z-Wave devices. And I like Indigo. The web interface and the Python interface are pretty fantastic, but I wanted to integrate better with things like Hue, and all of the other more Apple focused devices I have around my house that Indigo can't, like my Govee lighting, which is, you can use it with Alexa, but there's no way you're going to get it to work with the Home app. So I've been meaning to install Home Assistant. I was going to do it on a Raspberry Pi that I still haven't even unpacked. And then I noticed that there was a Synology package for Home Assistant Core.
Yeah.
And so I installed that, and the setup was so good. Like, it detected all of the devices on my network, and I could just click it, added a few options for each kind of device, assign it to a room. Its Apple TV setup was fantastic.
So good.
And
Home Assistant's
I
amazing.
can control my Apple TV through Home Control. I'm very impressed with it as a free project. Again, I feel like we're on an open source kick today, but Home Assistant, I don't know if it's full OSS,
It is.
but it is free, and it's pretty fucking good.
And they've got a really, really, really vibrant community. They have like almost 70,000 stars on GitHub, and they're very active.
Jesus,
with a lot of
that's so good.
lots of people. They're part of our maintainer program, and they've been part of some of the various events and things that we've had. So I've been able to interact with some members of their core team over the years, and they're really, really great. Like, I think that just what Home Assistant is doing, is fantastic, because it's making it easy for all of these different things to work together. These standards that we claim, that for more than a decade at this point, like, we've been promised, like, oh, this stuff will make sense, and they're now, like, Matter has been supposed to be the savior, for the last few years, but like the Matter support is garbage, and getting things to work across different things is kind of annoying. And like, yeah, there have been things like Homebridge and other stuff, which is great, but like Home Assistant is
great, but flaky.
But very flaky,
And-
to be honest.
And
Yeah,
I had such high hopes for Matter, and they're not panning out. And
Right.
yeah,
totally. But I don't even fuck with it. Like, for my limited smart home stuff, and I don't have a ton of it, but the stuff that I do have, I've been using similar to you, like Home Assistant running on a Synology package. But then also just knowing that, like, you can like run them on basically any type of device that's out there. And the community is really, really good.
yeah. All right. That was a fun Grapptitude.
Yeah, it was.
I wonder what Jeff would have picked. Anyhow, we're at almost an hour 30 minus edits. Christina, it's been a lot of fun.
It's been a great time, Brett. Get some sleep.
Get some sleep.
The system is going down now.